Today's sales leader faces increasing pressure and seemingly impossible quotas. And most are told the answer is more calls, more pipeline, more grind. With over 20 years in the trenches of sales leadership, I know there's a better way. Welcome to the Authentic Sales Manager podcast, brought to you by From the Heart Business Network. I'm your host, Harry Spaight. I believe in celebrating wins, visualizing success, and making sales and sales leadership honorable. Let's go. Mike Chaudron, Vice President of Sales and Customer Success, is joining us on the Authentic Sales Manager podcast. Mike, what is the good word?
So Harry, good afternoon. The good word is sunshine here at Chaudron and Sons Farm in Limestone, Tennessee. So the sun is up, it is warm, it is nice, and it's a really good day. Looking forward to the conversation.
Oh, I love it. Sounds like a beautiful place up there in the hills. Mike, I appreciate you joining us. So tell me, what does an authentic sales manager mean to you, sir?
That is such a great question, and it's a short question, but it's a difficult one. But to me, I think it comes down to two things, Harry. I think it comes down to integrity and transparency. I think that's what teams are looking for is being always in integrity and being transparent, whether it be in group settings or one-on-one, coaching meetings, whatever. I think that's the two most important things about being an authentic sales manager. And it's served me well in my career.
Sounds great. You've had a long career, Mike. I want to touch on this transparency. What comes to mind for you when you use that word?
So, one of the things that I always tell my teams early on is I'm going to tell you as much as I can as early as I can, because there will be things that I cannot divulge, but I will always go right up into the line to do that. I think that creates an organization that's aligned, that's an organization built on trust. And it's not like, well, why does he have this secret and she doesn't? That to me, that does not create the type of positive, high performing culture you're looking for. So to me, transparency is tell them as much as you can, as soon as you can.
Nice. I like it. Mike, one of the things I noticed throughout my career, and maybe you've noticed this too, is that salespeople typically do pretty well. The ones that do well get promoted and they become sales managers. Was that the path that you took, or how did you get into sales management to start off your career?
So, I mean, that's a great question too, Harry. I think to be a good sales manager, you have to have carried a bag, no matter what you're selling. I think you have to be able to do the job of the people that you're now leading. Otherwise, I think it takes away from your credibility. Now, that being said, I think there are people who are great salespeople who probably would not be great sales managers. And I think there are really good sales managers who probably weren't that great of salespeople. I think I probably was just a little above average as a sales rep, but I always had a passion for people
Yeah.
and leadership. And I mean, that started playing high school football, where I just really enjoyed, being a leader, helping people get better, reach levels of performance that they didn't think were even possible. To me, that's what really gets my motor going, is helping people succeed and do better than they think they can do themselves.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm thinking when I hear you talk about sports and high school sports, it's a pretty common theme so far in this podcast where we're interviewing people that have had that experience leading whatever the sport it is, the football team, the basketball team, and so forth. The thought about what you said earlier, though, is that not all salespeople become great sales managers.
Right.
Curious as to what traits you got out of sales that helped you in sales leadership.
I've had some really good leaders, mentors, and I've had some really bad ones. And frankly, I learned more from the really bad ones than I did the really good ones. And it really came across as, what, if I'm ever a manager, if I'm ever leading people, boy, I'm not going to do this. This is awful. So you really you learn as much from the bad ones as the good ones, and you try to put that all together. But I've always tried to do it in the context of of from the rep. I mean, you want to make sure that you've got a manager that holds you to account, but also knows. I mean, I tell my team all the time, my success is predicated on yours. So I have as much skin in the game as you do, and I will do everything I can to help you succeed. So I think learning from your past, both from the good and the bad, I think is really, really helpful. If you put those two together, hopefully it makes you a little bit better of a leader.
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of truth in that. It's like, hopefully the ladder is going up, right? We keep getting a little bit better than the previous, but definitely, some great ones and some not so great
Yeah.
ones in the past.
Yeah.
Just thinking more on the sales side of things, you think about some of the star performers in sales, many of them are money driven. Doesn't mean that you have
Mhm.
to be money driven in sales leadership, but what are some of the traits that you would look at as a salesperson and say, that person might be good in sales leadership? What comes to mind for you?
I think that you start looking at someone who helps. One of my top sales reps at Underwriters Laboratories, a guy named Rich Prignoli, who's just was one of the best salespeople I've ever seen. But he had a trait of helping his teammates. We had a really complex pricing Excel sheet. I
Mhm.
wasn't very good at it. Rich was really good at it. And I found out months later that Rich was helping the rest of the team with it. And he is now in my old role there in sales leadership. So, one trait that I'm looking at, does this person help? I think that's really important. And then another thing is also, is the person as committed to the team's success as they are their individual success? Because that's when some magic starts to happen. So if you see a lady or a guy that really is committed to the team being successful, boy, there's when you've got somebody that can potentially be a really good sales leader. So that's the main two things I look at, for the potential of a sales leadership, is them, them caring and helping the rest of the team.
Yeah, so great stuff. So you're looking at the person and see, first of all, are they willing to help other people? Are they
Mhm.
doing it? And do
Right,
they care for the team, the success
right,
of the team? So if
exactly.
you look at the superstar performer, might be the top rep, top dog, whatever
Mhm.
you call the person, they might be whatever the amount of revenue is, but let's just say $1 million performer, but they don't necessarily care about the success of the team. I mean, kind of, sort of, but
Yeah,
they're not necessarily going out of their way to help others succeed
yeah,
because they want to be the star of the show. When
yeah.
those
Yeah,
people, I see you nodding. So what's coming to mind for you?
so, well, I think, I've had several reps in my career that were that person, and, simply just wanted to have their name at the top of the list, and God bless them. That's a good talent to have. You want them, as long as it's not disruptive to the team.
Mm,
Occasionally, you will see large ego, high producers that bring numbers in, but create more chaos and havoc to the culture than's necessary. And I've had to let a couple of those people go. And it was short term pain, but it was for the good of the overall team. Don't get me wrong. I love high performers, and you need them. But if they're high performers at a toxic level,
there you go.
then you got to get rid of them
Yeah.
and move them along. And that's a really hard thing to do. Trust me, I sat in a boardroom in Ann Arbor, Michigan, with the CFO and CEO saying, "Boy, this person you're talking about does a lot of business." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's toxic."
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a really challenging thing for your career, but those people don't need to be sales managers. And I think guy gave me an analogy the other day. He said, if somebody is a great plumber and all of a sudden you're going to put them in charge of 20 plumbers, are they the right person to suddenly go from, bud to
Right.
boss? And I
Exactly.
think that's something you have to keep in mind. And I certainly made mistakes in putting people in sales leaderships that maybe weren't the right one. So again, I think it goes back to kind of like what good leaders, bad leaders. I certainly learned a lot more from my mistakes than I did my successes. And you file that away and say, okay, won't do that again. And I think it's helpful. And then that way you're not trying to put a square peg in a round hole. That's not good for the person either. And you want to do what's best for them and the team.
Yeah. Well, let's take a quick break, Mike, and we'll hear a word from our sponsor, and we'll get right back.
Okay.
And we'll speak a little bit about culture.
Sounds good.
If you were buying a company, you wouldn't just glance at the website and say, looks good, let's buy it. You'd do your due diligence. You'd review the books, check the leadership, dig into performance history.
Exactly. You never spend millions on a company without knowing what you're getting. Yet, most CEOs hire salespeople with nothing more than a resume and a gut feeling.
That's why we recommend Sales Index Unlimited Candidate Assessments. It's like due diligence for your sales hires. Each sales candidate is evaluated across 21 core sales competencies because a crucial role like sales requires more than a personality profile. Sales Index compares candidates against a database of 2.5 million salespeople. You'll know exactly who has the drive, the grit, and the skills to perform before you bring them on board.
Because in sales, a bad hire doesn't just cost salary. It costs momentum, margin, and morale.
For just $299 a month, you can protect your growth engine and make every sales hire a smart investment.
Do your due diligence before your next hire.
Go to unlimited.salesindex.ai. That's unlimited.salesindex.ai and hire with confidence.
Welcome back to the Authentic Sales Manager podcast. With me is Mike Chaudron, and we're talking a little bit about sales culture. So, Mike, over the years, you've been around organizations that have great sales cultures, and then let's just leave it at some not so great. So, as a sales leader, how do you help develop a good sales culture?
I think, Deming said culture, eat strategy for breakfast. So I've always thought that culture is one of the most important things you can do. And I think the first thing that I try to do as a leader is create a positive sales culture. Now, I don't mean Pollyanna rah-rah junk. I don't mean that at all. What I mean is a positive culture. And what does a positive culture looks like? Clear expectations, no surprises, direct feedback on a one-on-one basis. So a rep will know that when we're going to have a coaching conversation, it's not going to be in front of everybody else. It's going to be one-on-one, but I'm going to praise you in public. So I think that you create a culture of trust where they know that the leader has their best interest at heart. They're going to do everything they can to help them. They're going to coach them hard. I mean, I use the football analogy a lot. I've got friends that are football coaches, and I mean, you coach them up, but you always do that in private. And then the other thing is avoid as much chaos as possible. Sales is chaotic at times. It's not always real clear what's happening. And I think that to really create a good sales culture is you've got to have clarity, you've got to have integrity, and you've got to make it as simple as possible. And focus on the things that are right. It's funny. A lot of places live and die, in Salesforce or the CRM. And if it's not in Salesforce, it's not real. And look, don't get me wrong. The data is important. The information is important. But I'm much more interested in what comes out at the right side of the spreadsheet, right? That you're closing sales and you're moving things along, because in my experience, I've also seen people play games with the CRM, right?
Absolutely.
And so I think the main thing on creating is a positive culture, a culture that where we each have each other's backs, and that they know that we're going to do everything we can to improve. And then let's have some fun. I mean, sales is hard, so let's try to have some fun. I think I mentioned to you at 3:30 today, we have a baby shower, on Zoom from our team members, and we're thrilled about that. So again, I think that understanding that a positive culture to help the team do better, the individuals do better, is probably the best thing you can do. And again, that keeps coming back to transparency and integrity, right? Just clarity is what, and simplicity
Yeah.
is what they're looking for.
So good. There's so much there to pull from. I mean, the idea of the transparency, like you mentioned, positivity, the accountability, having fun. Was that like the first sales organization that you were in, or did you learn this along the way, or did you see something somewhere along the path that you said, I want to be like that? What
You
was,
know, it,
what's your take?
it first started with my first sales job, which was in financial services. And the motto was the beatings will continue until morale improves.
My
And I
favorite.
learned which is true. So I got to, as I developed in my career and as a leader, I took the bad and I took the good, and I started thinking about the jobs that I liked the most in my career, and it was almost always where we had clarity, we had integrity, and at the end of the day, we had a little bit of fun too. You don't have to like all your coworkers, you really don't, but I still think it's good to celebrate wins a lot. I think catch people doing things right. I mean, if you look at the old safety analogy, around safety, people do the right thing 99% of the time. But 99% of what they hear is the 1% of the time somebody didn't do lockout, tag out, or wear their safety goggles or something like that. And I took that and flipped that to sales, in that you want to catch people doing things right. So I just think of the environments that I was able to succeed in as a rep tended to be those type of things. And there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat. But for me, it came down to relationships, transparency, integrity, and and working hard and having some fun. And I think that's the things that have served me best, in leadership roles.
Yeah, I love it. It reminds me of myself when I went to a Mary Kay conference with my wife. And I'm
Yeah.
telling you, the positivity, I said, you know
Oh,
what? My culture needs to improve once I saw that culture. And
oh
from
man.
then on, so what's your thought about that?
I have actually been at conferences too where they're like in the next room and stuff, and just the positivity that they had, and God bless them. I mean, get you a pink Cadillac and go. I mean, I just think that's a great story from there. But I think there's a lot of ways towards success, and coming back to culture slightly, I think knowing what floats the boat of a rep is important. What is important to them? You mentioned money, and money is almost always there, but not always.
Mhm.
I remember that one time at UL, we had this goal nobody thought we could hit, and we ended up hitting it. And we did these little $15 acrylic, mission 10 million
Okay.
things, and they're still on people's desks.
Yeah.
It is
Amazing.
amazing that we spent $15. The bonus money is gone.
Right.
All the other accolades are gone, but the little acrylic thing saying mission whatever, they hit it. It's still there, and I think that that's something that you never know what's important to people. Another thing is handwritten notes. I'm a big handwritten note guy. I can't tell you how
Nice.
many times I've been in a customer's office, or you're doing a Zoom call with a rep or something, and look on their credentials or whatever, and there's a handwritten note from me, because they don't get them anywhere else. So I just think trying to do the little things that people know that you care. Recently I've had a couple of people, not super recently, but in the recent past, that had some illnesses and stuff. And I think that and they were trying to work through illnesses and stuff, and that's where, like, all right, we'll stop, go get care, go
Yeah.
get better. We'll be here when you get back. And even though we might destroy the place beyond all recognition while you're gone, we probably won't.
Mhm.
And it'll probably be here when you get back. So go get better, and we'll be here when you get back. So I think, it sounds trite, but people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. And
Yeah.
you really have to have a genuine caring heart for your people, and holding them to account is part of that too.
Yeah.
But really caring about your people is important, and frankly, becoming a grandfather has helped with that too.
All right. Well,
That you just care.
Let's save what the grandfather, how that relates, Grandpa, to sales and sales
Yep.
leadership. Let's take a quick word from our sponsor and
Okay.
we'll get right back to it. Thanks, Mike.
Sounds good.
If you were buying a company, you wouldn't just glance at the website and say, looks good, let's buy it. You'd do your due diligence. You'd review the books, check the leadership, dig into performance history.
Exactly. You never spend millions on a company without knowing what you're getting. Yet, most CEOs hire salespeople with nothing more than a resume and a gut feeling.
That's why we recommend Sales Index Unlimited Candidate Assessments. It's like due diligence for your sales hires. Each sales candidate is evaluated across 21 core sales competencies because a crucial role like sales requires more than a personality profile. Sales Index compares candidates against a database of 2.5 million salespeople. You'll know exactly who has the drive, the grit, and the skills to perform before you bring them on board.
Because in sales, a bad hire doesn't just cost salary, it costs momentum, margin, and morale.
For just $299 a month, you can protect your growth engine and make every sales hire a smart investment.
Do your due diligence before your next hire.
Go to unlimited.salesindex.ai. That's unlimited.salesindex.ai and hire with confidence.
Welcome back to the Authentic Sales Manager podcast. With me is Mike Chaudron. And Mike, we were just talking about how grandparenthood, Grandpa, can actually help you understand sales leadership better. So give us your take.
Well, let me tell you, there's no better job in the world than Papa. And I have 4 grandchildren ranging from 8 to 3 months old, and there's nothing better. But I think what being a grandparent does is it really puts things in perspective as to what really is important. So I think from my standpoint, it's helped me understand for my team that are expecting children, that have children, that understand what really is important to them. So, being a grandfather, and then the other piece is, as a grandfather, you're not quite as busy as you are as a father. So you realize what's really important is to talk and listen. My grandson and I last night went to the Mario Galaxy movie together. And the drive to and from the movie was as important as sitting with him at the movie and let him tell me about school. Let me tell me about his braces hurting him and that type of thing. Whereas I think as a father and maybe an early sales manager, I didn't listen as well. So I think what you really get out of being a grandfather is and grandparent is that you listen better and you can tune in on maybe what's really happening, be it with one of your direct reports or with a grandchild. And that really is helpful to me.
Yeah, so true. I'm just thinking about being present.
Yeah.
When you mentioned the difference between parenthood and grandparenthood, so when I was younger, obviously my kids were young. I probably wasn't as present. There was no probably about it. I wasn't as
Yeah.
present as I could
Me
have
too.
been.
Yeah.
So you're busy thinking about work when you're with the family. When you're with the people at work or on the sales, right? You're thinking about the family. And it's like
Yeah.
we're not present in either places. Now that I reflect on that, it's
Yeah.
like, ugh. So as we get older, depends because we're always getting older, but we think a little bit differently
Yeah.
about being present.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
so, like with what you're telling me here about is the time in the car, do you feel that it's valuable for sales leaders to be out in the field with their reps and paying close attention to them, or is this all managed from the corner office? What's your thought on that?
Well, it changed with COVID. Prior to COVID, I was out pretty much every week, belly to belly with customers and salespeople. I think that is critical to support, help the team get better. Now, after COVID, more Teams and Zoom type sales calls, so you join those types of calls. So maybe not in the car with them, but depending on the particular model. But I think you've got to be down in the trenches. You cannot, in my case, I cannot manage a sales organization from a corner office. It's got to be hands-on, get your hands dirty, get out there, hear what the customers are saying, seeing what the reps are doing. So I'm just always been a very hands-on leader. At one point at UL, I think I flew 140,000 miles one year,
Wow.
and just, gone all the time to be out in the field with the reps. And I still believe that's very important, but the transition has been more to Teams and Zoom now virtually, but still being very present with the reps on calls.
Oh, that's great. So I'm glad you brought that up. So how can you be present when you're not with the rep as much? So how do you take time during the week to do that, or what do you do?
So in the case of my team now, we do the weekly one-on-ones, and to me, those times have to be sacred. I mean,
Mhm.
it just really bothers me when I have to move one from a morning to the afternoon for things out of my control. So I think number one, that's the thing, and be really present. And I have 5 things that I cover in our
Nice.
one-on-ones. And it's always first and foremost, how are you doing? Are your kids sick? Do you have the flu? What's going on? That's first. And I think that sets the tone. Then we do pipeline reviews and what's happening. And we always end with, what do you need from me? And I have
Mhm.
Microsoft Notes, OneNote open, and I keep a list of, okay, here's what they need from me. And then follow up on it. And I tell my team all the time, look, if I missed something or I hadn't gotten to something, you are to come to me. And I got one right before we went on, like, hey, I need this. I need this, boss. Cool. I will have it to you. So I think that's the important thing is just be very deliberate on the one-on-ones and listening. And then also, I think a team call is important. And I don't mean the ones where you just roll your eyes and go, kill me now, but have very interactive, of
Yeah.
what's going on. And I
Have you
even
been?
just kill me. So when we do teams calls, I try to leave 5 to 10 minutes at the end for what I call open mic, not
Mm,
MIC, but MIKE, and
yep.
listen, because sometimes the group will say things that maybe they won't say one on one or vice versa. But this, when you hear if there's a bird under the saddle of 2 or 3 of them, it comes up. You're like, hey, okay, didn't see this one, better jump on it. So I think the main thing is just being very intentional and very caring about the time that you spend with them. And then, look, I love our group chats that we have. We have open, Teams messages, and just, hey, how are you doing? Who's coming to the baby shower this afternoon? How'd you do on Wordle this morning? Just little types of things
Yeah.
that just kind of keep us connected, even though we're not in the same office.
Oh, so good. Mike, you are very inspiring. I'm loving these ideas. But I've noticed at times sales might have some downturns.
Yeah.
So, what is it you do when things might not be roller coaster high, but are hitting
Yeah.
a low a little bit? What is it you do to stay upbeat and positive?
So, I mean, just a great question because it's real, right? I mean, we're human and sales is up and down. The first thing that helps me is I work for an organization, Green Seal, that has an amazing mission. We are committed to the environment and sustainability and safe products and human health. So that gets me up in the morning because no matter how hard the job is or how we're performing, that's really important work. So that's the first thing that I actually keep our website up a lot that has our mission statement and some of the things that we're doing. So that's one of the first things we do. And then the other things is I remind myself and I remind my team is that bad times don't last. You just gotta fight through them sometimes, and it's not easy. So acknowledging, okay, so look, this is hard right now. We just gotta fight through, keep doing the things we know we need to do to be successful. You can't slack off or start trying to suddenly just change what has worked in the past. You've just got to really focus on that. So that kind of brings me back around is our mission. And tough times don't last, tough people do, and you fight through them. And frankly, it's pretty rewarding to fight through those difficult times. And when you come out on the other side successful, it's pretty good. And then the last thing I'll say is you have to remind the team that success is out there,
Yeah.
and you paint that vision for them that, okay, here's what it's going to look like at the end of the quarter when we hit our number. Okay, so we missed this month. Keep doing the same thing. Some stuff got pushed. Keep doing the same things. And here's what it's going to look like at the end of the quarter when I'm doing those bonus check requests for you.
That's great. Mike, I understand that in spite of you being a granddad, busy in sales leadership that you found some time to write a book or two. Is that true?
Yes, that is true. I have 2 books that are completed. One was just recently published, and the book is called Agent Confidential, An Insider's Look to the Business of College Football. And I have
Nice.
been around college football a lot, so I took some of my experience in negotiating large contracts, along with the time that I spent on sidelines, friends of mine that are football coaches, and tied it all together. And hysterically, it was up until recently the #1 best-selling new book on Amazon in microeconomics. Go figure.
Awesome.
So, Agent Confidential on Amazon, really a whole lot of fun. And then I have a more important book coming out in the fall called In the Arena, Mike's Rules for Businesses and Life, that I think is much more important. And it probably won't sell near as well as the book on college football. But thank you for that. I'm a frustrated writer at heart, and I really enjoy that. So somewhere down the road when I do retire, I'll be doing podcast and writing instead of leading sales teams. So thank you for that. And I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Well, my pleasure. It's been a real pleasure having you on, Mike. And if you want, if you're out there listening to Mike, find him on LinkedIn, Chaudron. And Mike will be providing the value. Thanks again, Mike, for joining us. I appreciate you on this journey and helping the listener to see some of the things that we can do to build up our culture and build stronger sales teams. So this has been great. Thank you very much,
Good.
sir.
Well, Harry, thank you. And thank you for what you're doing. I think of as a sales leader, it would have been good to have something like this a few years ago, 20 years ago. So thank you for doing that. And I certainly hope this is beneficial to your listeners.
Yeah, you and me both, man.
Thanks for joining us on the Authentic Sales Manager podcast, brought to you by From the Heart Business Network. If today's conversation resonated, rate, review, and share it with a sales leader who needs to hear this. Keep celebrating wins and making sales leadership honorable. See you next time.